Oh. Oh. That's it. There, that. Yeah, that. Yeah. Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about which type of gloves you should be sparring with. When I say sparring, I mean any kind of training where you're going to get hit, whether that be competitive sparring or self-defense, scenario application, whatever. You're going to get punched in the head during your training. You're going to need something on your hands to stop yourselves getting too injured when you're doing your training. So I've got the 4 different types of gloves here that you can use, plus an extra large size of the normal boxing gloves. So I've got the 5 different types of gloves here. We've got, starting with the 4-ounce professional tournament MMA style glove. So that's the smallest. Then we go up to the 6 to 7 ounce amateur MMA competition glove. Then we go up to the sort of 6 to 7 ounce MMA sparring glove. So it's the same weight, but it's not so dense, so it's a bit better for getting punched in the head all the time. And then, of course, we go up to the traditional boxing gloves in a 10, so a nice small size, which is going to usually be your competition size in boxing. And then the big 16-ounce sparring glove of the boxing style. Obviously, with each of these types of gloves, the further that way you go on the line, the less you can do with your hands. So if you're just working boxing, if you only practice boxing, then obviously you're going to use a boxing glove. But even then, do you want to be sparring with the 16-ounce boxing gloves or the 10-ounce? Because that larger weight can make you maybe think that you're protected because you've got the bigger gloves to protect yourself, and then you go down to the smaller glove and it's a different way of moving. So should you be sparring with the 10-ounce or the 16-ounce, given that you will be fighting in the 10-ounce, probably depending on your style of tournament? So naturally, if you're doing something like MMA or any kind of self-defense orientated martial art training, you're definitely going to want to look at some of the smaller ones. Naturally, the 4-ounce MMA glove, that gives you the most freedom of your hands as to what you can do, but it doesn't give you very much protection. And basically, as you go that way, you sacrifice mobility and what you can do for more protection. So basically, it all comes down to how hard you want to spar. If you're not sparring very hard, meaning you're only hitting each other just sort of that sort of pressure, just light, very light pressure, there's no point in putting on the huge big 16-ounce gloves. Okay, you may as well go for one of these smaller ones. If you're only hitting each other lightly, may as well get that training of having your open hands and being able to do your grappling and trapping and all the other stuff you can do with the smaller gloves. But if you're training, you think, oh, gee, this is really, I'm getting a headache at the end of each day, it's really hurting, it's too much for me to handle in the amount, the pressure of which you're using in your sparring, then naturally you're going to want to think, okay, maybe I should do something with the bigger gloves. What I tend to do in my training, I tend to use the smaller ones for the majority of the time. And then if I really want to pressure test power, I'll say to my partner, right, today I want you to really fly at me full force, really try to knock my head off. Then obviously I'll tell him to put on the big 16-ounce. So what I'm going to do now is I'm simply going to get my wife in and tell her to punch me in the face with each one of these gloves. So you can see, I'll just let her sort of hit me very gently and then gradually increase the pressure until I say like, oh, yeah, that's a bit uncomfortable. You see, I wouldn't want to take more power than that on a regular basis. One punch here or there, that's okay. And remember, when you're sparring, even if you're wearing the lighter glove, you might say to yourselves, okay, you're only punching this hard, just gentle strikes. Every now and again, you're going to take a heavier blow just by accident. Someone accidentally hits a little bit harder. That happens. So I don't mind taking a heavier blow here and there in a session. But if it's every time I get hit, it's that heavier blow, then I'll tell my partner to put on the bigger gloves. So what I'm going to show you on this video is my wife's going to punch me, and you can see how much force she uses in each strike, how much my head moves, whatever. Look at the power in the movement. And I'm going to try to roughly say to her, I'm going to say stop when she gets me to a certain level of discomfort. And I'm going to try to get that same level of discomfort with each glove. So naturally, she'll have to punch me a lot harder with the big glove to get that same level of discomfort. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to talk to you about before we start punching me in the face with these gloves is, what about no gloves in your training? Okay? In my experience, we do what we practice, we sometimes train with no gloves. But of course, it's just touch contact. So no impact whatsoever, basically, just a very light touch. So you can get that total freedom of sensitivity and what you can do with your hands, but you're not physically hitting each other. We'll typically hit each other in the body, because your body can take more, it's softer and so on. But I'm talking about the head and the neck region. But if you only ever practice with no gloves, you're probably going to get into a false sense of security as to how good your defense is and even how good your strikes are. Because you might think you're hitting someone when actually you might be just on the end of your range and you're not really quite sure. So putting on the gloves allows you to bring in that realism of what's happening, at least realism with reference to power. So once you go up to the bigger glove, you kind of lose some realism in terms of what you can do, because you can't grab, you can't do certain techniques with those biggest gloves on. But you have more realism in the sense that you can hit each other properly with the larger glove. What tends to happen if someone spars purely barehanded is there's too much precaution involved. And I don't mean in terms of the power. They might physically hit each other, but they'll actually purposefully start to aim. So, not everyone, of course. There's those exceptions of those guys who go out there, you know, like the gypsy fighters, the gypsy bare knuckle fighters who physically knock each other out with bare fists. That's fine. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about guys, if you spar bare knuckle and you're not getting hurt, then it's probably not such a realistic training session. That's my view. So, just to show you a little something here. Okay. The body is fine, you know, if you've trained yourself a little bit to take a punch in the body. So if Fran puts a punch into my body, for example, so just hit me as hard as you can. Hard, come on, hit. See, especially, I mean, there's a size difference here naturally, so Fran's not going to hurt me. But, you know, you can hit, even when I train with one of my male students who's the same size as me, you can hit each other with a decent amount of force in the body because it's soft tissue. And I mean, you can generally take a punch better to the body anyway, regardless. But we're talking about the head here. Now, I'm going to get Fran to demonstrate something here. Now, I'm going to tell her exactly where to punch me first. I want you to punch me. Wait till I close my jaw before you hit me. So I want you to punch me like right there. See? So you're not getting any bony bits. You're hitting right where it's all soft, across the muscle of the jaw, okay, with her fist. So hit me there, just not too hard, of course, but keep going. Keep going until I... Don't hit me when I'm talking. Sorry. Keep going until I say stop. Come on. Oh, come on. Oh. So that last one was a bit uncomfortable. Okay, that's not nice. But that's, you know, as I say, that every now and again in a training session, that'd be fine. That's not so bad, okay? But she was punching right across the nice soft muscle of my jaw. And that's what I mean. I find that when people train with their empty hands, they actually try, because they know how much it's going to hurt if they don't hit that soft area, because it's bone on bone. Now we're going to do the same test, but we're going to hit to a much more sensitive area, which in what I teach is where I would tell you to punch. Because remember, when you're sparring, you're training your body as to where you want to hit. Okay? So if you're sparring and aiming at the protected areas of their body, the areas that don't do very much damage, that's where you're going to hit someone in a real fight. Okay? So I don't want to train to hit her right on the soft part of the jaw. Or same with the nose. People tend to start slapping above the nose because they want to hit the forehead because they don't want to, you know, break the guy's nose every time they spar. So they're not aiming directly at the nose. Okay. Now I'm going to tell her to do a good punch, but very gentle this time. I still increase the power till I say stop, but increase in smaller variants because this is a very, very sensitive. So what I'm talking about is behind the jaw, just in here. Very easy, whom. Your hook, obviously not your straight punches, your hook punch. Whom. That's where I would aim my hook punch, okay? So I want you to get those knuckles, see like that, right in behind the jaw. Very gently. Oh. Now that was already in fact, that was more uncomfortable than the heaviest punch she did on the last one. And you saw you were barely doing anything, like there was nothing in that. Okay, so you see how sensitive that particular area is. This is why people don't aim there with boxing, of course, because with a boxing glove on, the best possible place to hit is on the end of the jaw, because that rattles the brain more. Whereas if you don't have much power, especially if you're fighting a bigger guy, like if Fran punched me as hard as she could here on the jaw, it would not knock me out, no way. Because she's so much smaller than me. But if she hit me in the back of the jaw there, that's going to do the best, might still not knock me out, but it'll do the best chance possible to give her a chance of defeating me. Okay, so you saw how little force there was used. You can test these out on yourself. Please be very, very careful if you're not a skilled martial artist. So be very, very careful. But just test that out. Like get your punch. You can do it just yourself. Is the safest way. So yeah, I can take that, but put it in there. Oh, no, don't want to get hit there. But you can only hit that with a bare knuckle. Even a small glove, it spreads out the power so the power doesn't get in there. You need like a bone on bone to make that work. So you can see there that even if we'd have to be sparring with even that much pressure, just this little touch pressure is too much for certain regions of the body. Same sort of thing goes for the nose and so on. So that's my point. If you're wearing nothing on your hands, you're going to be being nice to your partner. You're not going to go for that behind or under the jaw. You're not going to get that bone-on-bone contact. So we're going to carry on now, and we're going to go through each one of these different gloves and do the same thing we just did with the bare knuckle, but show you what pressure we can go up to with each different glove. We're starting off with the typical 4-ounce professional MMA style weight glove. Okay. See, that's already, you can see my head, that made me a little bit dizzy. That's not nice. I mean, as I say, I'm fine. I could take that. If you're going to do a fight, you've got to get used to that. I'm talking about your regular training sessions. If I were taking that, 20 times in a sparring session, I'm going to have a headache at the end of it. I don't want to have a headache at the end of every sparring session. Okay, so now we've got the amateur MMA style glove. So this is what they would wear in your amateur MMA fights. This is about a 6.5 ounce glove. As you can see, there's a lot more padding than the 4-ounce glove that we had on before. So same thing again. There, that's about the same, but that was a lot harder than the previous one. So again, we're going up in force. Okay, we now have the next size up. It's actually the same weight as the previous one, as the MMA amateur competition glove. But it's an MMA sparring glove. So it's the same physical weight, about 6.5, almost 7 ounces, but it's less dense. So you can see here there's a lot more padding on the top. It's squishier padding though, so the weight of the padding is actually the same. But because it's a lighter weight, because it's a less density, it means it's got more give, okay? Now, just a little side note on that. I did do a separate video on this, have a look on my channel, about glove density, so I won't talk too much about it. But that glove, that last one versus this one, both the same weight, low density, high density. Okay, for lighter strikes... Oh, I'm sorry, am I being too noisy for the baby? Yeah. Okay, I'll try to keep it down, okay?
Have to be quiet. Talk.
Okay, I'll talk a bit quieter, okay? Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, apparently I need to be quiet because the baby's sleeping. Where was I? So, basically, under lighter pressure, so sparring, playful pressure, this will protect you far more because it's squishier. However, under heavy pressure, this will actually compress down to as much as that one anyway. I can be loud now, can I? Oh, thank you. The baby's woken up. Oh, thank you very much. So effectively, at least under heavy pressure, you'd get the same sort of protection, or same damage to your body under heavy pressure. If anything, you might be able, I would actually argue that the denser one will actually protect me more than the less dense glove. Okay, so same test again with the MMA sparring glove. Yeah, that last one was about that same level of discomfort. And you can see, and actually I might get you to say as well, how much harder would you say that was than the last glove?
Yeah, that was much harder.
Much harder. Like you definitely felt a difference in how hard you were hitting me. Yeah. So I think you should be able to see that from the camera anyway. So that one I can definitely take a much heavier punch than that previous one. Okay, we now have a 10-ounce boxing glove. Okay. Oh, one last little thing, just with regard to getting hit. When you look at a 10-ounce glove, not all 10-ounce gloves are the same. Not all 16-ounce gloves are the same, and so on. A 10-ounce glove that is very, very narrow, such as this one, it means that all the padding is going to be more up here. You're going to have thicker padding on a narrower glove. So you can have a 10-ounce glove with this much padding and another 10-ounce glove with this much padding. Because if the glove is wider, that 10 ounces has to be spread out over a wider area. Therefore, you've got less protection. So take that into account when you're choosing your sparring gloves. A much narrower glove is better if you want to have more protection at the knuckle where you're actually hitting each other. Okay, so same test, 10-ounce boxing glove. Yeah, that was about it. Was that harder?
Yeah.
Harder than, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, the last one, the 16-ounce boxing glove. We'll see what difference this makes. No, that's already it. Was that like a lot more or about the same?
I think it was a bit less.
A bit less
Yeah.
on that one. Maybe that's probably, if she's saying it's a little bit less, but that's maybe also the fact that I've just been punched in the face 4 times with the other ones. So I felt it about the same. So, you know, we can't be like exact to the one. Oh. Oh. That's it. There. Yeah, that. Yeah. But see, now that's another good point to make. Now this is a 16-ounce glove versus a 10-ounce glove. I'll just show you those close up for a moment. Same brand, same style, everything's the same. But this is 16-ounce versus 10-ounce. So there is a lot more padding on that glove. Okay, so under that sort of pressure, your 10-ounce offers exactly the same amount of protection as your 16-ounce. Okay, this one definitely offers more protection than the 7-ounce sparring glove, but still not like Fran said to me there, she was only hitting me a little bit harder with this one versus that one, okay, versus the sparring MMA glove. So essentially, the only reason you would use a 16-ounce for your fighting training is if you're going to be hitting each other fairly hard. If you're just doing playful kind of sparring where you're just hitting each other about how hard Fran was hitting me there, the 16-ounce glove gives you no benefit. But the benefit of the smaller glove is it's much more like, either if you're boxing, it's much more like what's going to actually happen in your boxing fight. And from a point of self-defense and MMA training, you know, anything where there's other stuff, grappling and so on that you can do, although it's still a fully closed boxing glove, it's still more realistic because it's smaller. When you put these on your hands and the other guy's got the same 10-ounce, you find you can get through holes where you wouldn't be getting through with the 16-ounce because the 16-ounce is just that much bigger. You just put your hands up in front of you and you can't get through kind of thing. Because what you have to remember is with any glove, more padding doesn't give you more protection unless you're hitting hard enough to compress the padding of the smaller glove. So with this smaller glove, I could feel when Fran was punching me there, the padding was not fully compressing. I was still feeling the squish of the padding hitting my face. So if that's not fully compressing, then more padding won't really give me any much more benefit. It might be, you know, a tiny percentage of difference, but not much. Whereas if you get hit by that and you feel cool, like a really good solid clunk, and it feels like the padding completely compressed, and you got hit with something hard rather than soft, because once that padding fully compresses, of course, you're getting hit with something hard, then going up the size is going to give you a massive advantage of not getting so injured. So to sum up, when should you use each one? Obviously, it's up to you and how you train. But just to give you an idea of what I do with these different types of gloves, I'll let you know. I almost never use the 4-ounce ones. I don't find they really offer hardly any protection. So I occasionally use them for very light sort of contact work. Especially if I'm really focusing more so on the grappling and trapping side of things. That way, I essentially wear these sometimes, but I would treat the training session more or less like as if I'm wearing no gloves. But it just gives you that little bit of cushion over the knuckles so that if you do get a bone on bone, like I was showing before, behind the jaw or something like that, it'll just cushion that blow on those bony areas. So you do get that little bit of benefit. If I'm doing quite light training, light contact, but I still want to be able to hit my partner, then I'll wear the amateur MMA gloves. But anything where I want to put a bit more oomph into it, go up to the MMA sparring glove. Yeah, Iceman. What have I got the gloves here for? I'm doing a video explaining to these people which gloves they should use when they punch each other. Which gloves do you like best, Clara? Which ones do you like the best?
These ones.
These ones?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. See, Clara likes the 10-ounce boxing glove the best. Hey, you like punching Papa with these ones? Okay. Okay, you'll be back soon. So I'll use these ones, the MMA sparring glove, for 90% of the sparring that I do. If I'm doing a very grappling-based, like focusing on grappling in a session, I'll use these ones. I will sometimes use no gloves when grappling, but you don't want to get used to grappling without striking, because you get into a false sense of security as to what you can do. So this is why, doing, say, BJJ, purely BJJ class, that's still great for your training if you're doing, say, MMA, but you're better off doing the BJJ in an MMA style, in that you have to be aware that while you're doing a certain lock and hold, he could punch you in the face. Whereas in the BJJ, you can get a false sense of, oh, this is working really well. Then you go to the MMA, try the same technique, and you think you're covered, but then he punches you in the side of the head. So you can wear these ones. This allows pretty much good freedom of movement, allows your hands to move, allows you to do all your techniques. But if you just want to get just light strikes, very light strikes, since you're grappling, you're focusing on the grappling, but hard enough to know that you're getting hit, not just sort of, touch contact. You can hit each other hard enough to make yourself aware of those strikes whilst you're grappling. Okay, and then we're left with the boxing gloves. When should we use these? If I'm doing a sparring session and I'm focusing like majorly on only hitting, punching, maybe I'll wear these. I still find the sparring gloves are good enough. But if you're doing a session and you're finding that, oh, it's just not quite enough padding, then I will sometimes use the 10-ounce boxing glove. So you can just have that little bit more freedom, a little bit more free in your punches. Don't worry about, you can hit a little bit harder with that little bit more protection. The only time I will use the 16-ounce glove is what we tend to do, this is what we do in our practice. If we're doing total free sparring, free fighting, whatever it's involving, but total free form, no set drills or anything, just total free form, then we don't do that at absolute full power. So in which case we would only go up to a maximum, usually that, but a maximum of the 10-ounce glove. The times when we use maximum power to test that student's guard, right, to make sure that when I'm throwing that punch, their guard will stand up against a full-powered blow. And what we'll do also is we'll even get bigger people in. So like I could test my wife because I'm a lot bigger than she is. So I could throw my heaviest punch at her, make sure she can still hold her guard up against that punch. I then need to get, bigger guys than me to throw full power at me. So if we're doing that kind of training where it's, because you're now doing kind of set drills, when we're doing our set drills, it's very unlikely you're going to get hit during a set drill, but it's still possible. So that's why in the set drills, that's where we deal with that maximum force. As like I'll tell my student, look, you swing that as hard as you possibly can. Yes? You can climb on that one, yeah. But I'll tell them to put on the 16s just in case. Just in case I get something wrong and I take a full powered blow across the side of the head or anywhere, I am going to suffer less injury from the 16s than I would have from the 10s. Okay, one last thing I'll tell you just before I sign off on this one. If you're sparring light, even light to medium, however, under that light pressure, this will actually hurt your partner more than this will. This is a 16-ounce glove. It's supposed to be more protection, right? And it does give you more protection if the power is great. But under lighter pressure, this will give you more protection. Why? Because when you're throwing your punches, right, you throw your punch with a certain kind of velocity. You throw it out with a certain amount of throw. You throw that arm out with a certain amount of oomph behind it. Imagine just dropping your arm, okay? Now, put weights in your hands and drop your arm. It's going to be heavier, isn't it? So therefore, it's going to do more damage to the thing that it hits. So I find when I'm wearing the 10-ounce, if I think in my mind, I'm going to hit this person with this much force, yeah, X amount of force. Then I put the 16-ounce on, and in my mind, I say, I'm going to hit them with the same amount of force. But they actually get hit harder with that glove because it's heavier. If there's more weight on the end of the glove, that person's going to actually take a heavier blow because there's more weight at the end of the swing. That was one of the things, you know, have you ever heard the term weighted gloves? Oh, he went in with weighted gloves. That's a way to cheat in a boxing match. You put weights in the gloves so that every time you land a punch, it's going to actually have more power behind it. Of course, that's more weight, but no more padding. Now, the 16-ounce, you've got more weight, but you've also got more padding, you see. So, as I say, if you are fully compressing the padding, then the extra weight, although it adds a little bit of power to the movement, you've got a lot more padding. So overall, you're going to be more protected. But under those lighter to medium pressured punches, you will actually get less head swing, less ringing of the brain, less headaches, less injuries overall with the 10-ounce compared to the 16s. And, you know, same goes for all of these. This is now, let's call that a 6.5, I think it's, yes, between 6.5 and 7 ounces or something. Compared to the 10-ounce, that's lighter again. It's not a huge amount lighter, but it is still lighter. So again, under that light, if you're doing even lighter pressure, this, in theory, will actually give you more protection than this one. What do you want? Do you want this one? You want that one? Thank you. Okay. Oops, I dropped it, Clara. Can you get it for me? Oh, thank you. Thanks, Clara. Can I have that one? I need that one. Can I have that one as well? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's all. I just need these ones. Thank you. Oh, sorry. One very last thing I just remembered that I wanted to tell you about. Naturally, the big difference between all of the MMA style ones and the boxing gloves is open finger versus non-open finger. So that might be something you want to consider as well, particularly if you have kids sparring or just anyone who just knows, you know, they just don't know anything yet, total beginners. You might want to consider giving them a closed-handed glove, simply because even with something like that, if they, you know, they've got their hands, I won't bother putting them back on, but they've got their hands a little bit open, and if they forget to close their fists when they throw a strike, they might just, you know, go like that or something, because they don't know what they're doing. They're not trained yet, they're going to be making mistakes. There's much more chance of a finger in the eye. So that's another thing you've got to take into account. You've got to be careful of your fingers either being damaged themselves, you could break your own fingers, but also, more importantly, is jabbing your finger in someone else's eye. One more, I'm pretty sure this is the last one, but one last little thing. Also, if you practice something which is open hand based, as in the techniques you use are on the assumption you're not wearing gloves, you might do practices like this. Let's say, I don't know, he's thrown something there, you've covered something there, right? And some sort of a strike like that with the open palm, okay? Or any kind of palm strike, for that matter. Just remember there's no padding on the palm when you're wearing a glove. I made that mistake a while ago. I was sparring with a partner, and we were getting a little bit rougher, okay? So the punches, we were wearing, I think, something similar to that style, so the MMA sparring glove. So it meant we were going, relatively good pressure through the strikes. But then, and for the most part, see a strike like that, it only comes out every now and again. It's not a regular, it's not one of your more common strikes, because you've got to get in a certain position to pull that off. So anyway, we'd been throwing bangs, bang, 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 but then it just happened, he knocked me in a certain position. I just went, what? And in that split second of reaction, I, of course, forgot that there's no padding here. So I smacked him in the face with my open palm. And I mean, it wasn't too bad. He didn't get like really damaged because we weren't going full force. But still, he got a hell of a lot more injured than he would have had I done a fist strike. So that's something you have to take into account, is when you're doing your gloved sparring, sometimes you can get a little carried away because I can hit him now. I can hit him, bang, 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 bang. And oops, accidentally drop an elbow in. Now, I don't find you'll make that mistake with elbows or knees or your head or anything else, because it's a different area of your body. But I do find it's a possibility with the hands if you accidentally do a palm strike, or even something like a knife edge strike, anything like that, because there's not going to be any padding down there. That's where, again, the bigger glove comes into play a little bit more. If you want to just be a little bit more free as to what you're going to do. Now, even though I can't do a palm strike as such, I can't open my palm in these, but if I happen to end up in that same position, I can do the same motion, the same way of moving my body, the same strike, but they're still protected by all of that, you see? Like so. Now, knife edge, no. If it's a knife edge strike, even with the full boxing glove, there's still no padding there. So those kind of hammer down strikes on the collarbone or something like that, you're still not going to be able to practice those. So that's where we do our empty-handed sparring, to be able to practice all of those shots that you can't really make contact with. They're too dangerous to make contact with. Or when you're sparring, of course, you can simply say to yourself, this is how we do most of our sparring. You know that these strikes can be a certain amount of pressure. If I hit him with my elbow, less pressure. If I hit him with my feet, my knees, there's no pads on those, so less pressure on those. So that's just something you have to get used to. All right, I hope that's given you some insight as to how to do your sparring and which types of gloves you should be using for your level of training. But yeah, the main message there is, don't just use the biggest gloves there are, because they don't necessarily offer any more padding, any more protection, if you're only going light anyway. If you're only going light anyway, may as well use a smaller glove to get more realism, more freedom of movement, and you'll actually learn how to be a better fighter using the smaller glove. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed. Any questions, leave them in the comments, and if you like what I'm doing, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and yeah, I'll be back soon with some more lessons. Good stuff, guys.